I want to share some of my experiences learning to solder copper plumbing fittings. I'm not a plumber by trade. My profession has nothing to do with plumbing whatsoever. Just somebody that has an interest in plumbing, and it's kind of fun to do on the side, just as a hobby. I don't do this for a living. I don't make any money from this. Before I show you some of this, I'm going to splice in some video just showing a few clips of me actually soldering some of these fittings, and then we'll pick back up in just a second. So when I first started playing around with soldering copper fittings, it was actually because I had to make an emergency repair. I think it was the day after Christmas, and it was an extremely cold winter. It was the day after Christmas. I had to make a repair, and that day I called 7, 8, 9 different plumbers, close to 10 different plumbers in our area, and not a single one could come out within the next 2 to 3 days. So I kind of had to learn, and I figured it wasn't actually that hard after I started doing this stuff. So a few things that I have learned that have helped me is, first of all, the flux choice. I've tried several fluxes. I've tried like the Odie, the regular, I think the number 5 tinning flux that kind of has that like almost like melted caramel looking. What I found works the best for me personally, and I recommend it, is the Odie number 95 lead-free tinning flux. It is a little bit harder to work with because it's almost like a wax. The other flux is like kind of like the consistency of Vaseline in that it spreads and applies super easily. This is a lot more wax-like. It is harder to apply, but it does have some solder powder in there. And I find that this does not boil off anywhere near as fast or as easy as the normal flux does. This is a lot more generous to you applying too much heat or a little bit more heat than you should. And it tends to stay put. So when I'm doing like vertical fittings, I notice on vertical fittings, the regular flux is really easy to kind of boil it out of the fitting if you're not too careful. This is a lot more forgiving with that. Solder, this is expensive. This is the Sterling. It is a low melt temperature solder. That right there, I just find melts a lot easier and better, and I just have better luck using that. It just seems to flow way better. I do use, now this is not true MAP gas. This is the MAP Pro, yellow bottle stuff, but I've been using that, and I find that it does heat the joint up a lot quicker, and you can get to soldering faster. I use one of the Burns-O-Matic TS4000 torch tips, just because you can use the torch upside down at any angle with that. So a few of these fittings here I want to show you. I did this one here. This is like one of my more clean looking fittings. There's a little bit of a gob because this was on the bottom side of it, but if I actually put the effort in, I can make decently clean looking fittings. But I don't focus on that so much. My concern is whether or not it leaks. That's really what I'm concerned with. And the Sterling solder, what I have found is that it really easily beads up here along the pipe. And so you can see like a real generous bead of solder there. And obviously it's not making the watertight connection there. It's making it in between here. But the sterling solder, it just really melts easily. And I like to see that. I like to see a really nice kind of, you know, lip of solder around here. To me, that's just more reassuring that the joint is filled. I've posted videos before, and what happens is a lot of people comment and say, oh, that's the worst solder job I've ever seen. It's ugly. But then you look on their channel, there's never, ever any videos of their own showing you how they do it. They just comment on yours. But the trend I seem to see is that people want as little solder as possible, and they want to make it to the point where you can't even tell it's a solder joint. You can't even see any solder, which is fine. I mean, you only really need what's in between here in the fitting. But me personally, I just want to rest assured that it's a rock solid joint. So a little bit extra like this sincerely does not bother me. And again, nobody's paying me money for this. I'm not a professional. I don't charge money for this. This is just stuff I do as a hobby. So all I care about is whether or not it leaks. And here's something to point out here too. This is a little bit more kind of ugly here, but looking inside, when you add a little bit extra solder, you actually get a solid ring in here. And there was some excess that pulled there. So, you know, that's a factor. But see that ring of silver inside? That means that not only has the solder filled in between, it's also filled kind of a lip on the inside towards the fitting and a lip towards the pipe. And when you do a fitting like this, I know for a fact it's not going to leak. I know that because there's ones that are in use that have been holding pressure perfectly fine. So I just wanted to share some of these. If anybody has any comments they want to leave about some plumbing tips that they do, I'd be really... See, here's another one where it kind of dripped there. But this one, when I was soldering it, I couldn't see the bottom, so I didn't even realize that was there. So if anybody has any suggestions or tips, I welcome them. I'd like to share information, but I just wanted to share this. I personally think, especially for amateurs, that the Odie lead-free tinning flux and the sterling solder are the way to go for learning how to solder plumbing pipes. And if you have to make an emergency repair and you got to go run to Home Depot or Lowe's, pick these up, and I think you'll be pretty happy with the outcome. Thank you for watching.